Let's discuss the characteristics of C language. Generally, the languages are compared as high-level language, medium-level language, and low-level language. And it is important to know the parameters for this comparison. Why any language is considered as high-level language, or a medium-level language, or a low-level language. If we see the points or the parameters that are referred mostly, the first is the learning parameter. How easy to learn some language is. For example, it is considered that high-level languages are easy to learn, while it is difficult to learn low-level languages. Similarly, if we consider the understanding point, what do we mean by understanding? That if we are given a code, or if we have to write a code, how much that code is readable. That if we view a code and we can read that code easily, that is we mean here. And high-level languages are coded in a way, or high-level languages have a coding style that is near to our reading style. So how we write English, then in a similar way we may be writing our code for our program. So in high-level languages, the reading level, the readability of code or the understanding of the code is very easy. And in case of low-level languages like a machine language, it's very difficult to understand the code written in machine language. And what is the objective for understanding or reading a code? That we want to understand the syntax, or we want to understand the logic in that code, or we want to understand the functionality in that code. So when we have to understand the functionality in a code, then any language that is if that is similar to an English language or near to our spoken language, then the code written in that language is easy to understand, and it is easy to understand the logic developed in that program. While in a machine language, you will see in your future classes that it is very difficult to analyze or read a code. Similarly, now the execution of a code, that how a code is executed, this comparison is different to earlier 2 points like learning or understanding. What do we mean by execution? That how much time will our code take to execute? Of course, it's a requirement for every program that it should execute fast. It should execute with a very low burden on the processor. In case of high-level languages, the execution is slow, while in case of low-level languages, the execution is fast. So it is a difference. But in today's world, this difference is not creating much effect, as we are getting very high power computing machines. As we see the processor technology advancing, then we really don't need the machine language programming. Of course, that is required in certain cases, but in most of the cases we don't require a machine level language. We require, or we can go with high level languages, as we have enough sufficient computing power in our computers now. Similarly, modification, if we have to modify a high level language code, or if we have to modify a low level language code, it is easy to modify a high level language code, and it is very difficult to modify a low level language code. So the programs written in the languages like BASIC, or you have seen the list earlier, of course it is easy to modify the programs written in those languages. But if we have to modify a machine language code, it requires a lot of effort, it requires a lot of time. And when we modify some code, actually we have to verify our modification, and we have to test our modification that this particular modification fulfills our requirements or it doesn't fulfill our requirements. So when we talk about modification, we also discuss about the testing, the debugging of our code. So to test or debug a high-level language code is easy, while it is very difficult to test or debug a low-level language code. So people usually consider high-level language for these reasons. But there are certain reasons for low-level languages. So the below 2 points, hardware level interaction and knowledge of hardware, these are specific to low-level programming languages. That if we want to interact with the hardware devices, with actual hardware, then we require a low-level language. In high-level language, high-level language are mostly not designed for hardware interaction, while the machine language or low-level languages are meant for hardware level interaction. So in our point of view, we should be firm that if we have to develop a device driver, or if we have to develop or if we have to write code for embedded system, then we will prefer to use machine level language. High level languages are generally not considered for hardware level programming. Knowledge of hardware is required definitely in case of low level language, because in low level language we are actually accessing the hardware. We are using the registers or the memory in the hardware. You will experience this register interaction or memory interaction in your microcomputer interfacing courses or in embedded system programming courses. So in machine language, you consider the hardware, while in high-level languages, you don't consider the hardware, and you simply start coding or developing your application. Finally, the uses of the languages, as we have discussed earlier, that the high-level languages are used to write applications. For example, if you write some application to run on Microsoft platform or Windows platform, then of course you will prefer to some high-level language. But if you have to develop a device driver, for example, you are developing a program that interacts with the printer, that interacts with the USB drive or USB or flash memory, or that interacts with the TV or with the LCD screen, of course you will be going to the machine or low level language programming. So the utilization of languages is of course different. For high level languages, we have to develop applications, and in low level languages, we generally have to develop device drivers, or we have to write coding for embedded systems. And as a computer engineer, this is the core of the computer engineering, that you can write programs for the devices, or you can write device drivers where operating system can interact with that particular device. So this is the particular objective, or this is the core objective of a computer engineering degree, that you are able to interact with embedded systems. But as of today in Pakistan, there are very few jobs that target this hardware level interaction. So you must be considering the possibilities. So in major possibility we have today in Pakistan is web and web programming. So of course you should be considering that. Web programming is generally considered in computer science discipline, but I personally feel that all computer engineers should know, so that they cannot lose any job opportunity.